Welcome to the Bridge the Gap podcast. Here's your host, Dustin Udke.
What's up, everyone? We got another episode of Bridge the Gap tonight. We're going to be talking about what it's like to live report, to go to these events like the Super Bowl, which was just a week ago. The Combine's right around the corner. The draft's going to be coming up. I've gone to a couple of those. And I want to bring on someone to kind of talk the ins and outs, kind of behind the scenes, what you guys don't see, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings about what we do when we're there and what people do when they're interviewing people and what it all takes to actually do that. So to talk about this, I brought in Luke Sawhook. He is a content creator. He's also runs socials for Grader's Ice Cream now as his full-time job, which I think is super awesome. We were talking before the show about it. He's been doing content in the football space for various different people. Now he's just kind of doing his own thing right now. Luke, how's it going tonight?
I'm doing good, brother. It's good to see you, man. Dustin and I have hung out at a couple of these events in the past. We hung out a lot at the Combine, in Indy,
The draft, yep.
In the draft as well. It's great to see my man and have the chance to hang up and catch up a little bit. But yeah, man, it's good to see you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm trying to do more guest podcasts and whatnot because love talking to my friends in the industry and, just shooting it.
Yeah, so before we get started, tell anybody, what you got going on, where they can find you, all that good stuff. I've got your Twitter scrolling at the bottom.
Sure. Yeah, my name's Luke Sawhook. It's Luke and then the two metal objects. You can find me on pretty much any social media platform on earth on that. I am a full-time social media manager, so I obviously have to be on every platform ever, basically. So yeah, like Dustin said, I've worked in the industry for about a dozen companies over the last few years, doing internships for social media, writing articles, podcasting, you name it. I've done it to a degree in the industry, like on a part-time basis. I worked full-time for a company for a little while. It didn't turn out to be the best experience. We don't need to get into that though. So I'm now out of the industry in a full-time manner. I'm more so just building my personal brand, making fantasy football, sports betting, and NFL content on my TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, all that kind of good stuff. Instagram as well. Just recently made that page before the Super Bowl. But yeah, man, just having a good time. I really just enjoy content creation. I feel like it's a big part of who I am as a person. And it's been a lot of fun on the journey. But that's a little bit about me. But back to my boy Dustin here.
Yeah, and I think that's fun because, Brett, I started this podcast as kind of like a football extension, and it's kind of grown into less football talk, more just general topics, because I think just creating content in general is part of the creative outlet. And, we brought, I think, my guy Kevin on a couple weeks ago. We talked about creating music and what that is, and that's just an extension of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to talk all about all things doing live reporting and what that's like. But we start every show off with a game.
What exactly is the game?
Well, it is not a quiz or a trivia contest, nor is it a test of brute strength or athleticism. At its core, it's just a children's game, and I would wager that some of you here this evening have played Would You Rather?
So I got a Would You Rather. It's a classic start to the Bridge the Gap show. So, Luke, would you rather end every one of your days with a press conference where you're going to have 10 to 15 reporters. You're going to have to get up there. Now, I'll give you the option. You can do it at the end of the night before you go to bed, or you can do it first thing in the next morning for the previous day. But you're going to have people asking you all kinds of questions. Why did you choose that for dinner about your day? That's how your end of your day is going to be, a press conference where you are being asked questions about whatever they want to ask you about. Or would you rather have the majority of all your conversations be a press conference where you're a reporter? So let's say you go to a restaurant. You're not you don't sit down the waiter. It's press conference style where you're in the scrum and you're like, I want a cheeseburger, and someone else is like, oh, and you're screaming and shouting over people. But that's all your things. So if you want to talk to your parents, it's question and answer form, right? Mom, Dad, how are you guys doing? They answer, and so it has to be question and answer form. Would you rather have all your conversations be question and answer form, or be grilled in a press conference at the end of each day?
This is easy for me. I can't lie. I think it's definitely, I would rather have a press conference at the end of each day. I'm already an extrovert as is. I already don't mind getting attention from media and stuff. I put myself out there on the internet all the time. And if anything, if they do reporting on me, hypothetically in this scenario, it'd be a good career opportunity. If anything, I'll take it. I'll happily take it. I'll conduct a press conference on my boring life every night before bed. Tell them how I played Marvel Rivals for 3 hours straight, which is the new video game I'm obsessed with. And
did it win apparently from your tweets?
Yeah. Half my tweets about Marvel Rivals. I know it's terrible. Playing ranked on that game is torture for those who know out there. The teammates are just It's incompetence because it's a team game, Dustin. And there's 6 players on a team, and I'm playing by myself, so I'm at the mercy of 5 other people on my team. Relying on them to be competent humans, and they're just not. So it's pretty brutal, but I'm still having fun doing it. I was actually playing before this with my buddy, so it was a good time. We actually won some games, made some progress tonight. I was not having a horrible session, so that was nice.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd much rather have a press conference. We had Shimano Dave on the show a couple weeks ago. We talked about counseling and being able to process your day in a way that allows you to, if someone asked me, why did you choose to have McDonald's for dinner versus eating, something healthy? You'd be like, oh, why did I choose that? I was like, oh, and it would allow me to process my day better if someone was asking me questions about my day and the decisions I'd made, or even some of the more what I would think are menial things maybe they think is interesting and kind of allows me to process. So I would take the press conference. I don't want to have to ask questions all the time. I do enough on this show and interviews. I do a lot at work anyway, so I'm done asking questions. I don't mind answering them. I'm like you, extrovert. Let people come at me, and I can adjust on the fly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's the choice for sure.
So let's get into live reporting because you were just at the Super Bowl. You've been to a combine. You've been to a draft. I've been at 2 drafts, 2 combines. First of all, let's talk about what was it like being down at the Super Bowl week, media week at the Super Bowl. What is that like? Because that's the only event I have yet to go to, even though I've had opportunities just with family work, haven't been able to swing it yet.
It's fantastic. I mean, I don't stay for the game. When you're applying for the credentials, it's a little bit different than some of these other events where you just apply for, general media access for the week or whatever for the event or the day of the event. With the Super Bowl, it's a little bit different. You apply for a week of game credential, or you go for a press box credential or something along those lines. For me, I always just go for the more standard. I always go for the week of game credential because it gets you into more events. And it's easier to obtain. And I don't know when I'm applying, if it's going to be a full rejection if I try to go for a press box pass or something and I can't get it. So I don't do that. I usually just apply for the week of game only. And that gets me into press conferences, media, food and beverage availability, stuff like that. So, when I went down there this week, I flew in on Sunday night. The event started on Monday. I went there in the morning to the media center where they have the Radio Row set up and the media workroom and all that kind of stuff. Radio Row, first off, is fantastic. They don't really have a media area at the combine and the draft and stuff where local radio sets up and everything. It's completely different. It's a lot of the big dogs, have big TV sets and podcast setups and studios. And it's really cool. I mean, there's a lot of players and stuff walking around. There's a lot of higher profile media names and stuff in there. It's pretty interesting and pretty entertaining, honestly. And then when you get to the press conferences and stuff, it's pretty similar in setup to what we've done in the past in terms of going to these media availabilities. There's these talking heads on podiums. They'll answer questions about, the safety of the Super Bowl coming up and what food they're serving and the media welcome and that kind of stuff. It's kind of boring. But later on in the night on Monday, they had the opening night, which is an incredible event. Dustin, you definitely should try to attend that at some point if you can.
That's basically my plan.
That works. It's at the stadium. All the media are on the field, and there's 10 podiums around, 5 on each sideline, essentially, with players and coaches on it. And they're up there for an hour. Both teams rotate on and off, and you get to walk around and just try to get in these media scrums and get as many questions as you can. It's insanely intense, but it's super fun. I mean, I literally waited at the barricade front row for 2 hours for Saquon. So it's a lot, but it was really fun. Earlier on that day as well, we also had the media food and beverage preview, which is excellent. They take you, it's the best event, honestly.
Yes.
But they take you up in the suite at the stadium. I did it in Vegas the year before as well for the Super Bowl. And they lay out a bunch of the food that they're going to have available in the suites for guests, and media can wait in line and go through and film and take B-roll and pictures of it that they can use in their content. And that's an amazing experience. You get to eat the food, take pictures and stuff to use for content. It's fantastic. On Tuesday and Wednesday, it's kind of where things dull down a little bit in terms of the player access. It's every morning there's a player media availability at the hotels. It's usually one big guy and a bunch of lesser known starters or starters that people don't really care about as much. For example, on opening night, right, for the Chiefs, you had all the heavy hitters out there. You had Mahomes, Kelsey, Hopkins, Pacheco, Coach Reed, all of them, right? But at the media availability is a little later on in the week. It's Kelsey and, George Karlaftis and Kareem Hunt. It's a little different. But it's still great. But the thing that was awesome on Tuesday was the media party. They do a big party for the media in the Super Bowls. And dude, those are incredible. Seriously, you need
Those
to go.
seem like a ton of
I need
fun.
to be there. The budget is nuts. Like the media just gets to go. Anyone with a credential is invited. You show up, you walk in, it's free food and free drinks all night long with tons of entertainment for like 4 hours. It's incredible. But those were the highlights essentially. But during the day, it's just kind of whatever flow you prefer to do and what you're working on. For me, I didn't really have anything going on at Radio Row because I was there independent just as a content creator for me to do my thing. And I was there mostly for the networking. That's really important for me.
Yep.
2, the player press conferences and interviews. Those were great opportunities as well to be able to, talk to Hurts and Saquon and Mahomes and all those guys. Fantastic opportunity. And then lastly, obviously, I'm just there for the other media events available, like the food, beverage preview, media party for networking and just for a good time, the welcome press conferences, all that kind of stuff. So it depends what you're looking for, but that's what the Super Bowl is like for Media Week. There's events going on, press conferences, all that kind of good stuff. But it's also fun just to explore the city and get some beignets and gumbo, So that's kind of what I was up to.
I get to be, but I've seen you, and I know we've sent some other people when I've had credentials. I couldn't go, and some other people have gone. Right, you do get the press conferences, which are a whole animal. We'll get into those, but you do get all these other events, and even the draft is the same way, where there's the actual draft, but then there's like 15, 20 events that are going on. So in Kansas City, I went. They were like, "We're having this flag football game," and I was like, "Oh," and they're like, "Oh, it's." RG3 and Michael Vick are going to quarterback it, and it's AMP versus some other content creator group. And I was like, okay, I'll go. I don't know, so you respond and say, yeah, I'll go. I have no clue what kind of access. Next thing you know, I'm on the Chiefs field. It's me and like 2 other reporters, and I'm talking to Michael Vick. I'm interviewing, Tyreek Hill. I got a video from a buddy who loves RG3, and then just watched them play flag football for like an hour. And I'm just standing on the Chiefs field. It was just the craziest experience. So there's all these other things. Like in Kansas City, they had tomato days where they were planting tomatoes. In Detroit, I went and saw, it was Sam Laporta and Drake May working at a veterans home where they house veterans. So they were building the garden and doing some stuff and putting new fridges in. So it was just watching those guys like do that. There's all this like crazy stuff. We went to the Clutch Athletic event in Kansas City. I went again in really cool. Detroit. Yeah, it's just all these like cool events that you can go to. I've gone to, Trent Green's house party for Boys and Habitat, or Ronald McDonald House, and I went to Jerome Bettis thing in Detroit for Boys and Girls Club. So it's not just the event. There's all these other satellite events that the NFL or private people put on surrounding that day and that week, and you can just go an event, and right, it is part of it is exploring the city, right? Going out and seeing where these other places are. When I went to Kansas City, the Trent Green one was at this restaurant, and outside was a Lainey Wilson concert before Lainey Wilson was big, right? And I was like, I kind of knew who she was, and I like to listen to a little bit of her. I was like, okay, cool. It's late. I'm going to go home. There is all these events, and I think the misconception is like, you go, you do press conferences, you leave. It's like, no, it's not really all there is, because there's a lot that goes into it from a content creator's point of view. And the Super Bowl is one thing, right? The combine is, press conferences in the morning from like 8 to 11. You get like an hour for lunch, and then it's watching workouts. And you're just sitting in basically a quiet stadium because there's no music, no noise.
Weird. I feel like, I don't know if you
super weird.
Know that. At the combine, when you go there, even for the fans, everybody in the stadium, it is dead silent in there. Dead silent, because the players have to focus. So everyone just has like earbuds in. Because then you can listen to the commentary from like Rich Eisen or whoever for like NFL.
Yeah, Daniel Jeremiah, all those guys.
Talking about what you're seeing, like you would be watching on TV, which is nice. But it's really strange when you're in that stadium and it's just silent. The only thing people ever clap is after like a really impressive 40-yard dash or something.
Yeah, it is. The combine, the first one was like, oh man, it's just quiet in here. Right, the combine for me is a lot more getting to know the players and that networking. But like, I tell people like, oh, I should go. I'm like, honestly, it's worth going once, but honestly, watching them on home is just as good as watching them in the stadium.
Dude,
like, you
honestly,
do get a little bit
of go back
buzz.
Because I live in Cincy. It's only a 2-hour drive.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Yeah.
So it's worth it for me to be able to go because, going to New Orleans, it's a lot more expensive. I have to buy a hotel and, fly down there. But for Indy, it's like, okay, I can get a Holiday Inn Express right next to Lucas Oil for like $100 a night, and I can just drive there. So it's way cheaper for me to go. Another thing, unless you're working for a company that pays for your stuff, you're paying your way there.
All of it, yep.
NFL is not flying me out, folks. I had to pay for my flight there, flight back, hotel, food, everything. The only thing I got was the media credential. But it's absolutely worth it if you're able to go. It's an incredible experience.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the other misconceptions. We'll get into those. But like these events, and even the draft, Thursday night there's press conferences with the draftees that are there. And right, so the guy who gets drafted at 1, we don't see him in the press room for like another hour.
It takes a while, yeah.
Because they got to go, they got to call their parents and they got to talk to the team, and then they do some press for the NFL, and then they come in and see the press, and we do our press conference, and then the first round will be over, and we're still there for like 2 hours. Like the draft gets over at like midnight. We're there till 1, 2 in the morning. I will say this: the NFL does feed us really well at the draft. They always have free food and drinks for the media, which is super nice. But honestly, then Friday you're just kind of sitting in a room. Like we just sat in a big room, like the NFL, the media workroom, and they had big TVs, and we sat there. We had our laptops, and we're typing away. And I've got a couple buddies that I hang out with now, and we just kind of sit there and talk draft. Saturday in Detroit, we didn't even go down. We just stayed at the buddy's hotel because they let us use their like conference room. We ordered the biggest pizza I've ever seen in my life. It was like 30 inches. It literally was. They described it as like a 30-inch pizza for 3 of us, and it was awesome. We just sat there and watched draft because that's all it is. It's just like hanging out with the draft and combine. It's like hanging out with a bunch of other people who just love that kind of like specific niche of nerdiness that is fancy. That is football.
I loved it on round 1 night when all the prospects came into the media. That was really cool. Right after they were drafted. Round 2 was interesting because this is Kansas City, 2023.
Yes.
Brian Burns was the only player on day 2 to have a press conference. I was in there for him. After that, I kind of just chilled in the media workroom and like watched the draft.
Yeah,
day 3 though was awesome because I went to an event that morning for some random thing. But then after that, I was just out in the crowd as a fan, experiencing the draft, and that was really cool. That was a lot of fun. I definitely want to do the draft again for sure.
I tell anybody that if you can,
I don't know. Did you apply for media credentials for the draft or the combine? I mean,
I did. I won't be going. I'll actually be in Buffalo for my best friends.
Yet?
Not yet,
dude. It's in like 10 days, and listen. NFL communications. I love you guys. Thank you for letting me go to these events. It's an honor and a privilege. But dude, I need some notice if I'm going to Indy or not in like a week and a half, and I have no idea if my credentials are approved or not. It kind of sucks.
So let's break down the process. This is how the process works. If you want to apply for credentials, you first have to have an NFL Communications, which is now NFL Media account. And so you have to apply for an account and get approved or not. I have found that recently a lot of the accounts, they've been a lot more stingy with accounts. So a lot of people I know.
I don't know if I applied right now, I'd be accepted, which is unfortunate.
I don't think I would either, to be honest with you. And so you're on there, and once that account gets you a bunch of other stuff, it gives you access to, I put out the pronunciation guide. That comes from the NFL. It gives you access to like headshots and other stuff for media. It gives you access to
and team media
logos and stuff like team media, all a bunch of stuff, which is all super cool. I get this. They put out like a 800-page like kickoff book that's got like stats and figures, and like I can look up. It's got every game that the Bills have ever played against every opponent, what their record is, and they do one for the playoffs.
Super helpful and useless at the same time because it's like
it's just a ton of stuff to parse through, and then randomly events will pop up. So I know the combine, the portal to apply for the combine happens the day after the Super Bowl. Usually, that's when it opens up.
They open up in advance of the events by a wide varying range. But you go to the event credentials page on the website every once in a while just to check. It's like that's what I do at least. I just go on there and check.
And so you have to check. So you apply, right? So you have to say, hey, this is who I am. This is who I work for. This is kind of my plan. This is how many credentials I want. You can ask for 50 if you want. Like I could go out and ask for 50 credentials. They're probably not going to give me 50. Yeah, they might give me one. And so you apply, and then I will agree with you. The NFL, as big as the NFL is, the window so the applications were due. The last day to apply was Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And then it's now the 18th, so 4 days later, we still don't know, and the combine is a week and a half away. I get it, they're dealing with Super Bowl, and then they start everything, like once Super Bowl's over, they go to the next event. It is very tight. And so I always tell people, like, listen, if you think you might your credentials, book everything, but make sure it's all refundable because you just don't know. Because there's no guarantee just because you had credentials for one thing, you're going to get them for the next thing, or just because you had credentials for the combine 1 year doesn't mean you're going to get them for the next year. It is all based on demand. They look at each application individually. I've talked to these guys, and men and women at the NFL Communications.
Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yes. I've emailed them, and because I've had questions about stuff, so we've emailed a bunch in the previous years of like, hey, what does this look like? Because I didn't know you could only apply my account. I could only make one application. I can't apply for multiple companies, right? Because I've had people like, oh, can you put an application in for me? And I did 1 year, and they're like, you can only have one. I was like, okay, cancel the other. And I was like, the 1 year it didn't get approved. And I was like, hey, can you tell me why? And they said, well, right, it's based on reach, it's based on your plan, it's based on your capacity, all those sort of things. Most people will say if you have it 1 year, you're generally going to give it the next year unless there's some high demand. But right, Combine is Combine, right? There's not a ton of new people. There's not a lot of new companies sending 15 new
Combine
people to the
crowd
Combine.
is a lot smaller than Super Bowl crowd and draft
Yes.
crowd.
And so we'll see. And I agree with you. Like, we are a week out. We are 10 days out from Combine, and we don't know if they're approved. I've checked every day. And so that's the thing. So you apply. So again, it's a, you have to apply for an account and get that approved, which is harder now than it used to be. You have to then apply for credentials, which everyone is vetted individually. So it's not like you have an account, you're automatically going to get credentials. Then when you get credentials, as a creator, we get them I'm hoping we maybe know by Friday. You have maybe a week to book your stuff if you don't have it already booked. Now, I'm assuming ESPN and NFL know they're going to get a certain allotment of them, right? Like,
Sure.
ESPN knows it's going to get, 50 or whatever they ask for. But smaller sites and smaller individual creators like me and you go, I'm hoping I get one. I'm going to ask for two and hope I get one, right? And if I get two, maybe I take someone with me, right? And there's a good network of us like, hey, I've got an extra one. You want to come under, my banner or whatever it is. And then we do have to pay for everything, unless you have a company that's paying for your stuff, which in the fantasy space is few and far between.
Very few and far between, especially in fantasy. I would go as far to say, unless you're like one of the bigger companies like Fantasy Life, football guys, maybe. I don't know. Maybe like Player Profiler. I know there's Player Profiler guys that go down there. I hung out with a lot of them. They're super cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if a lot of the companies are paying their way down there for fantasy. I feel like it's only like the big media publications like Fox.
Yeah, but even some radio stations aren't paying, or they're only paying for flights, or they're only paying for hotel, they're not paying for both.
It's tough. I mean, it's expensive, and and the industry, it's hard to make money for these companies, man. They don't have a lot of cash to throw out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's expensive trip. You figure a flight for most people is $300 plus $100 a hotel room for. If you want to be there for the whole Combine, you're talking Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. You're talking 5 nights. That's $500 plus. You're looking at $1,000 per trip. And you're talking about I don't do all these events because realistically, a lot of people go Super Bowl, Senior Bowl, Super Bowl, Combine, Draft, all 4 events in 3-month span. It's a lot. And so I think people just assume that, we get credentials and magically everything's like paved for us. Like, it's not. No. Like, we are paying our way. We are putting our dues in. And also, yes, there are some great things when we get there. We do get a nice chunk of food. We get they feed us pretty well. There's some cool events we get to go to. This isn't a vacation for us, right? Like, this is not.
I mean, it is. You work hard, you're tired, but it's an opportunity of a lifetime, though.
It's a cool experience, but
people would pay thousands of dollars for the opportunity.
Yes,
you got with the credentials.
There is work. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the work that we and you put in. Let's talk about asking questions. And what I think people don't understand with these press conferences, it is not a take a number and then get up and ask your question. There's no structure.
It's a zoo. It's a total zoo.
It is called a media scrum for a reason. It is whoever wants to fit in this group around this podium, and basically whoever talks loudest and gets the person's attention to ask the question. And so I always tell people when they're going for the first time, have 3 or 4 questions and don't have basic questions. Because asking Saquon Barkley what it means to go to the Super Bowl for the first time is going to be one of the first questions he gets asked. So if that's your only question ready, someone's already going to ask that question. So, Luke, what's your process when you're looking at like coming up with questions and coming up with creative questions? We've seen Kelly Phoenix had some good questions. We've seen some real creative questions out there. Like, what's your thought process when you're thinking about how to make questions for these?
I honestly don't prepare ahead of time for a lot of them. I only really do it for the big stars like Saquon. Okay. I think I'm prepared some ahead of time this time for Saquon, Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, and Kelsey. And then everybody else, it's kind of like I walk up to I'm like walking up to their podium. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is DeAndre Hopkins. What can I ask him about? He's had a lot of quarterbacks in his career. What's it like to play with Patrick Mahomes? That's like what I asked him. It's stuff like that. I'm not really, and it comes to creative questions. Personally, I try to stay more towards not like super basic, like dumb questions, like how does it feel to be in the Super Bowl? Like that's terrible, But what did I ask? Saquon. My question for Saquon was like, not only have you had the best season of your career, you guys also have made a Super Bowl run. What has gone so right for you in Philadelphia this year specifically to make this year happen for your career and for your team? Something like that I think is good, where it's not super basic, but you're still getting the football. I asked Jalen Hurts what it's been like to play with Kellen Moore this season after playing with so many different offensive coordinators. I asked Mahomes what it's like to be the quarterback of this Chiefs team dealing with so many injuries as a wide receiver this season and still having such a fantastic regular season. Stuff like that. That's kind of where I go to. I like to ask them more personalized, football-focused questions because I don't want to be the guy who, like some idiot, who asked Caleb Williams if he's scared to compete or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to do that. You don't want to be that kind of guy.
No,
Who would do that? I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time. I love you, dude. I've done stuff too, Dustin. I don't know if you remember. Last year at the Super Bowl, I told Brock Purdy I shaved my head because of him. That was stupid. Why did I do that? I don't know. It went over decently well on social. Some people made fun of me, but it was okay. For the most part, I like to keep it pretty cut and dry.
If you're trying to coax like something out of them, but like I've seen it at the combine where people are like, do you think birds are real? Like, how do we learn? How do we gain any information from that?
See,
but I think it's
those ones suck when you're waiting to ask your question because they're like, dude, I want to ask them an actual football question. And they're like, what's your favorite color? Shout out to Jameis Winston, by the way.
I want to know something that gives me a little more insight into the player as a person or into their like thought process of the year. I totally agree with you. But I think people don't realize like you are fighting with like a Saquon Barkley press conference at Super Bowl. I'm assuming there's 100 people there. Like there's a ton.
There was at least 50 people like right up in there. It was a lot.
Wait, it's not just Saquon. You're like you said, there are 10 people going on at once, and they're only going to be up there for half an hour or 20 minutes or whatever it is. So you have to like invest your time wisely because you can spend all 20 minutes at Saquon, or you can do like you can go bing bang move. Combine's the same word. Like if you're going to wait for Drake May, you're going to be waiting, and you might wait. You spend the whole time that group is on podium just waiting to get one question Drake May, or you can go around and hit all the smaller profile guys.
I like to go big game hunting.
I don't do big game hunting. I much rather would get quality information from some of these like sleepers. So my go-to question at the combine has always been, especially for obviously I'm more interested in the offensive players. The coach lets you call one play. What play are you calling? Right, and I think I got some good insights when we look at someone like Tip Ryman was like, I think it was Tip. He was like, I want to block. He's like, I'm going to call this run play where I can just smash him in the mouth. I'm like, okay, that tells me that this guy likes blocking. And so he's going to excel in blocking. So maybe he's just a blocking tight end, not necessarily a pass catching tight end. Allows me to gain a little bit of insight. And a couple guys are like, I want all verts. It's like, okay, cool. You are a player that wants to make big splashy plays. But then you'll get some guys who are like, I'm going to run a Z, and they start laying out this whole play diagram for you, and they can explain why. That shows me like they have this mental capacity for the game. So I'm interviewing a wide receiver or tight end tomorrow or Friday from Pitt, Mumfield. That's one of the questions. I want to know what his thought process is on playing the position. Like, what is the play you want, and is it a play for you or is it a play for the team? And that allows me to see some insight into these players. That's where I go. I'd much rather just hit up multiple people. Combine, there's up to like 12, 15 guys at a time. And they're there for 15 minutes. It's pretty quick. Then if I have time to hop in and talk to, Drake May or one of those guys, sure. I'm just not a big game hunter. But I do think the misconception is that we're there and we're automatically going to get a question. Just because we're there doesn't guarantee us a question.
No, there are tons of people I actually went with, and they just chilled out. Like, shout out to Jason from Player Profiler. I hung out with him a lot at the Super Bowl. He went to opening night. And he literally is just an introvert. He just sat up in the stands instead of going to ask players questions because he thought it was like anxiety inducing or whatever. I get that. It's tough, dude.
It's tough
to get like in there. That's what I'm saying. Like, I was exhausted after the opening night this year. I mean, it's 4 hours long. I mean, you get there at like 5:30 on the field. The Eagles don't even come out until 7. They're on the field until 8. Chiefs don't even come out until 9. It's a long thing. You have to camp out for the players you want. You have to be aggressive asking your questions. I will say, I do think I've gotten a lot better at getting questions answered. Like, I got, 14 players out of the 20 at opening night this year. Like, I was very proud of that. The only one I missed out on was Hurts of the big ones I wanted. But I got him the next morning on his hotel availability. So that was
pretty good.
But I found that you just start saying your question and just keep going until
keep going. Yep.
You have to be aggressive. It's tough, but
you do have to be a little bit aggressive. And I think there's this, like, everyone understands that and they get it and they are willing to relent sometimes and move someone. Like, there's sometimes I walked up to one player last year at the combine and they were like, the guy was just battling him over who's better, LeBron or Jordan. And they kept going, and like the player clearly wanted to wrap it up. Like the reporter was like, "Hey, we got questions, like actual questions to ask this guy. Can we just move on? Like, you don't want to take up time." But I think the misconception is like we just like we have to take a number. Like, all right, now up is like no one's calling on us. No one is.
No
We're not
hands
lining up.
raised, pointing, or
Yeah,
anything
it's
like
a
that.
free for all, and it is long and it is tiring. I mean, it's a crazy great opportunity and it's so much fun.
It's a whirlwind.
It's a whirlwind, and then you get done, and then you have to cut everything up for socials. It's not like you're sending that to someone else who's then like clipping it and putting it on your socials. You have to do all that work, and that is hours of work for the fact. So it could be you're there from 5:30 till 11. You get back to your hotel 11:30. You might be up for another hour clipping stuff for socials, getting it ready for the next day or the next morning. You're waking up early. And I don't think people see that behind the scenes work. So when we see people like you and Kelly and the people from Women in Fantasy who are posting this stuff from these events, recognize that it's a lot of work because it's not just showing up, standing in line, raise my hand, ask my question. Okay, then I go and I send it to someone else and they cut it up and post it on socials. We're doing all that work ourselves.
Mm-hmm. It is a lot of work, but again, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think
no, I wouldn't trade it for the world. But you are tired. Your feet hurt. Your back hurt. It's
dude, my feet hurt so bad after opening night. It was horrible. Plug. I vlogged my whole time in New Orleans. By the way, I posted it on YouTube. It's about 20 minutes long. I complained in multiple clips about how bad my feet hurt after opening night was over. It was crazy how much of a grind it was. Like I said, I stood at the barricade with some folks from Fantasy Life and front row for 2 hours, just standing there,
just waiting
in one spot for Saquon. Like, it is brutal, but it's so worth it. It was so much fun. It was a great trip. I do wish with these cities I had the opportunity to explore the city more. I got to do it more than I did in Vegas in 2024. New Orleans, I got to walk around a lot more because it was more of a walkable type environment. But man, I wish I got to explore the city a little bit more because you're just working the whole time. But so much fun. Again, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was fantastic. And I went down by myself. I wasn't meeting anybody up necessarily, but great networking opportunity for creators and for people in the industry to run into friends and people you've never met before in person but know online. Or, you're sitting in line for this media event and you're like, oh, I'm becoming best friends with this CBS sports writer. You know what I mean? Like that's what I did. It was a lot of fun. It was a good opportunity.
Yeah, one of my real good friends, JC Cox, is a reporter at Arkansas State. He does radio down in Arkansas. Met him at the combine 2 years ago. Just was looking for a place to sit. He was sitting on like a wooden stand they were using for cameras. Sat down next to him, struck up a conversation. Gave him my card. He kind of told me his name. Saw him at the workouts. After the one group workout, went over, talked to him a little bit. Afterwards, just messaged. We talked a couple the rest of the weekend. Messaged him on Twitter that weekend. Like, hey, it was great meeting you. Here's my number. Give me his number. Now I hang out. Now it's like, hey, when you come into town, I'll pick you up. I literally on Detroit, I picked him up, picked up my buddy Joel, picked up my buddy Mike. The four of us just hung out. It was like, I'll drive, you guys pay for parking. Done deal. Like, we'll go get lunch. Like, it was just one of those things where, same thing I did in Kansas City. It's like, I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to pick Tristan. Like, me and Tristan hotel. We'll pick up Mike. We'll come pick up you, Luke, and we'll all just kind of do it.
Yeah.
And you do make these friends that I only see at these events. So, like, that's, me not going to the combine this year is kind of sad because I'm not going to get to see my friends as much. I'll see them hopefully at the draft. There's guys from Kansas City that I met that, messaging and, right, I found a great hotel for Green Bay, and I was like, hey, guys, I found this hotel. You should book it. It's really cheap. And they're like, okay, done. And I think like 5 of us booked this hotel in one day because they were like $100 a night when everything else was like thousands. But I do think the behind-the-scenes work and the work that I think creators put in to provide all that content, some people go and just love to just chill and enjoy it. But I think for content creators, we're going to not only enjoy, but we want to get content and provide content for you guys to consume, right? That's why we do it. We don't just do it for our own selves. Yes, we do get things out of it. We want to create content that you guys want to see. We want to be able to put clips out there and videos and blogs and all that kind of stuff and write articles. It takes time and effort. I think people just assume we do it. And we're not paid necessarily to do it. Like you said, no one's paying our way. We're paying our own way.
I didn't make a dime off my Super Bowl coverage. You know what I mean?
No.
Not a dime. I mean, I paid all my money to get down there. I didn't have any endorsements or sponsors or anything. It's for the love of the game.
Yeah. And it has to be for the love of the game. And that's what it is. What's one misconception you think people have about these types of events? Is there a misconception you think people just assume about Super Bowl or Combine or Draft or Senior Bowl?
I think for the Super Bowl, a very common misconception is that you get to go to the game. Yeah. I did not get to go to the game. I was there from Sunday, the week before the game, until Wednesday. I could have stayed until Saturday, but I had to get back to work. Excuse me, but my credential was not for the game at all. I was there for week of game media. So all the press conferences and media events leading up to the Super Bowl game day, but game day
Yeah.
credentials, I did not have one.
Yes.
Outside of that, I think a common misconception, like you said, is just what the press conferences are like. I think people would assume there's more structure to like how things go. I think people would assume that there's like NFL reps everywhere being like, all right, guys, come over here. We have this player here. We'll be taking questions. Raise your hand and we'll call on you. No, it's like you get sent a schedule. There's these grand convention centers. You just walk into these rooms. You wait at the podium. A player emerges when it says that they're going to emerge, and it just happens.
Or maybe they don't emerge.
For the NFL, but it's not as on the rails as you would expect. Like you very easily can miss everything if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, and there's times where, right, so at the combine, people are doing medical checks, and so it might be, hey, player A is supposed to come out at 9:15, and all of a sudden it's 9:20, he's not out yet, and they're going, things are delayed, and so you might go to someone else, and all of a sudden he comes out at 9:55, right? And it's hey, this guy missed it. He was supposed to be out from 9:15 to 9:20, but now he's going to come out at 9:45, right? And they just kind of read things. So that's where like part of getting to know some of the NFL communications people know, and like, hey, and just ask questions. The guy Mike, hey Mike, what's up with this guy? Is he coming out? I'm not sure, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. was scheduled for a press conference, didn't come out at all, just didn't show up.
That sucks.
Oh.
I didn't know that. That sucks.
It's like, okay, it's like it is what it is. Like people were in there, and eventually they were like, yeah, he's not coming. It's like, okay. And there's all this stuff, and I think the misconception I get from people is that we have more access, like it's more access than there's like these players have structured times. Like the combine is structured. It's player A is going, they're getting done, they're coming in, they're doing team meetings, they're doing this, they're doing workouts, and it's like, hey, they're here from 9:15 to 9:20, like 9 to 9:15. They're here for 15 minutes. Here's your press conference. And you can't just like stop them as they're walking in the back. Like that's ripped off. And if you like one person might be able to stop them for 5 minutes, like I was able to stop Dylan Lobby and talk to him a little bit because we had talked before end of the interview. And the guy was like, hey, he's really got to go. And I'm like, okay. And they're getting rushed around. These players, I've talked to these players, like their days are just, the combine is a whirlwind. It's a whirlwind for them too. Like they are nonstop go, 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 go. You might see them, maybe you'll see a clip, of the guys throwing the ball in the hallways, but they're not like, they don't have a ton of free time to just explore the city. They're there. It's a job interview and they're busy. They are booked solid. And so I think a lot of people just assume that we have free time and we have free access and the players have like free time and we'll just maybe bump into them at dinner one night.
Not at all.
Generally not the case. You might bump into a GM or a coach, at the bar or at the club or at the restaurant, maybe. I know I've seen people just like running in Indianapolis, like out for a morning run and they run into one of the coaches who's out doing the same thing. But generally speaking, it is very structured in terms of time, but also just chaotic and a whirlwind for everyone, not just reporters, for the players as well. So when we do see people get good content, know that is a magical moment that took a lot of things to go right for that to happen. It's not just I orchestrated this. Like I called the NFL and go, hey, I'd like to ask Travis Kelce a question. And they're like, yeah, you're fifth in line. It's like it's just like, here's a schedule. Show up whatever you want to.
An hour and a half early before he takes the podium and elbow your way to the front of the line and sit there and aggressively ask your question and cordially. You're not being an asshole or anything, but you have to be assertive in asking your question.
You do have to be assertive, yeah.
Have good footage with good audio and go home and cut it up right. It's a lot, but yeah, it's worth it. 100%.
It is a lot. So I think the misconception is that people just assume like, of course you're going to get good clips. It's like, no, of course I'm not going to get good clips. I have to work to get good clips and good questions and good audio and good video and be at the right spot and the right spot. There's so many little things that have to go right for those things to happen. So when you see a piece of content that you like it, share it, comment on it, like support that person, because that took a lot for them to happen. It's not just magic, this happened. Like it's not orchestrated for them. It's not designed for them. They are working to get that done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest thing that I find the misconceptions. Anything else you want to talk about behind the scenes of doing these kind of press events and this live coverage for people?
I don't think so, man. I don't think so.
I think it's great. I mean, obviously, we both agree, and I think majority of the people realize how cool of an experience it is, how blessed we are to get to go and do these things, right?
Absolutely.
It's such a cool opportunity. Like, yes, it is work for us, but we enjoy the work. Like, we do this for love of the game. We are not doing this because we're making a killing off it. Obviously, you have a full-time job at Graders. I have a full-time job at the University of Wisconsin. We do this as a side job and not even a job because we're not going to really get paid for it. We do it for fun and because we love it. And it is a great event, but like I want people to understand what it really is that goes into this, right? We have to buy the camera and the microphones and the equipment and have it all charged and ready and have everything.
Do you use equipment?
I have microphones.
This is me. You POV. You're Saquon Barkley. Hey Saquon. So what went so right for your season this year? And I'm just recording you, and that's it. But dude, it works great. The audio always comes through fine. The video's clear. I can look at the player in the eye still while I'm recording. It works great.
I have these little microphones.
Yeah, those help. Lavs are great.
And so I put one on me, and I have one usually on my selfie stick. And I have a selfie stick that helps me, just get above the crowd sometimes. So I do. That's pretty much what you have to have those charged. You have to have your phone charged. You have to have a backup battery because if you're there for 5 hours and you're constantly recording, you don't want your phone to die 3 hours in. So there's a lot of work and prep that goes into it, planning it, right? Booking your hotel and your flight and getting time off work. There is a lot that goes into it. But we love it, and I think it's a great opportunity. So you'll be seeing people going to the combine. So Luke, it sounds like you're going to hopefully go to the combine.
I would love to, absolutely.
I'm not going this year, but I have some people that hopefully will be going. I think it's going to be a great event. Obviously, a really great draft class coming up. Then we'll have the draft in Green Bay, so I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully, again, I have a hotel booked, and it's 3 hours for me, so that'll be really nice because that saves me a little bit of time and money. And that should be a ton of fun. I think it's going to be a huge giant mess of a crowd because Green Bay is not that big, but I enjoy it, and so we're looking forward to it. So before we get out of here, we're going to do one fun thing. We're going to do a draft, and we are going to draft events we would love to cover from the press side. So we're doing a 3-round draft. Luke, I will let you, if you want to go, it's snake draft, so you either want to go first or second and have the turn. Which do you want to pick?
I think I would like to go. I'll go second. I'll take the turn. And these are events we have not covered.
Yes, I would say events you have not covered.
Okay, cool. Go ahead.
And they can be any event you want. It can be sports, music. I don't know, any other. If you want to do, White House press credentials, that's fine too.
Sure. 101. What do you got?
I'll go first. So I'll take the Stanley Cup playoffs.
See, this is why I would have never picked that. So there you go.
Because I'm a big hockey fan, and there's something about teams winning the cup. And the emotion that goes into that and because of the history and it's a 7-game series, to me, there's just something magical about that. Being able to interview players as they're getting ready to win the cup, playing that series and they're in the finals and then actually winning the cup would just be so magical. I've had my picture taken with the Stanley Cup, and I don't believe in magic, but there might be some magic on that cup. It felt magical. It felt like I was in the presence of every great hockey player that's ever come before me. It just felt special. So I'll take the Stanley Cup Finals as my 101.
I like it. For me, I have the turn. I think I'm just going to take the 2 major sports. I think I'm going to go with the World Series as my 102. And then I'm going to go with my 201. I'm going to go with the NBA Finals. Those are my big 2 outside of the NFL for sure. I think it's same reasons the Super Bowl is fantastic and, Stanley Cup Final. Big moments, biggest stage. Who would not want to go cover those events? So those are my 2 picks. All right, back to you. You have a turn now.
Yeah, I think the World Series and NBA Finals. I mean, I could say Super Bowl since I haven't done the Super Bowl, but we're going to leave the Super Bowl out since you've done it, and I don't think it's fair for me to pick it because I haven't done it. I got the NHL. I think there's something special about music festivals. So I want to pick one. I don't want to. Coachella is not really my scene. I think it's more India. I think more like a Glastonbury over in England, where it's like this. It's basically that's the Coachella over in England. It's gets all the big name acts. They come over. People seem to like that more than Coachella. It just seems to be more of the chill vibe. I would love to be able to interview like an Ed Sheeran and an Adele and whoever else is playing there. But you still get the Coldplays and those. So something like a Glastonbury music festival is what I'm going to pick.
Oh, I don't hate that. Okay, you have one more pick here to close it out, right?
Yes, and so my last one. This is tough because I have music, I have sports. There's not a ton left, so I'm going to go back to sports.
Okay.
And I will take the Indy 500. In terms of,
I don't hate that pick. That's cool.
In terms of racing, I think that has the most prestige. I think NASCAR, obviously, it's Daytona, which was this past weekend. There's something about the Indianapolis 500, kissing the bricks when you're done, being covered in milk. Like that to me is like a low-key, like just tradition and spectacle in sports that I think is very unique and very, very cool, and something about that would be just interesting. And I do think it also brings out a ton of like celebrities and people want to come and be part of the Indy 500 just because it's the Indy 500.
Okay, my third round pick here is actually my first pick. But a good drafting strategy, of course. I want to let it fall. I'm a huge wrestling fan. I'm sure you've seen it on my Twitter. I want to cover WrestleMania. so bad. I think WrestleMania would be awesome. It'd be so fun to interview the guys guys and girls after their big matches and be able to go watch that show live. Hopefully, would be insane, or just be in the building would be incredible. I would love to cover WrestleMania. I've actually looked into maybe trying to get WWE press credentials. I haven't emailed anybody yet, but I might soon as a content creator to see if I can get credentials to an upcoming pay-per-view or something. I think that'd be awesome. My honorable mention, though, that I would definitely pick if we had more rounds, is the Kentucky Derby. I think the Kentucky Derby would also be awesome. I don't really care about horse racing that much. I mean, as much as any average guy, I guess. I mean, it's exciting. I don't know. But it's a spectacle. You know, I feel like that would be that. I feel like the air would feel magical there, and it'd be a really cool event to be a part of.
I had that written down as well. I got married. The day I got married was Kentucky Derby Saturday, as a cute coincidence. I didn't really know that. We got married on 5/5 because we thought 5/5 was cool, and then we realized it was Cinco de Mayo after we sent invites out, and then it was like also Kentucky Derby Day. You're right. The Kentucky Derby is, again, one of those like spectacles and historic moments in sports. I think WrestleMania is a great pick. I'm a big wrestling fan. I'd much rather do the Royal Rumble. That's just my preferred wrestling event. I mean, WrestleMania is WrestleMania, but for me, like Royal Rumble.
I went to the Rumble. I don't know if you saw.
I did, and I wanted to go as well, but I couldn't swing it. But I think a wrestling event would be really cool. I would just have a tough time. I watch and look at wrestling very differently. Like I look at it from a writer's perspective and like how they wrote the story, and that's how I look at it. Not so much
it's great. It's storytelling on its finest.
It is storytelling at its finest. So I think it's cool. I mean, I think any sort of. I mean, I think doing a White House press conference would be really cool just once.
Totally.
I know people that work in politics, and it's cool. I mean, obviously, I want to go to the Super Bowl at some point. I have yet to be the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl. I think those sound really cool. Well, that's cool. Then I mean, it's kind of like the Combine on some level, where it's like you're watching them practice. But I think the Stanley Cup, Glastonbury, Indy 500, and you with the World Series, NBA Finals, and WrestleMania. I think those are all 6, and Kentucky Derby is on a bunch of 7 events that I think are super cool. Would be really cool to cover. Would just be a cool experience. Like even if I just got to do it once, like it'd just be something like. I would love to do it every year. If someone was going to pay for me to do all these events every year, heck yeah, I'm in. But like, if I could just do it once, is like, hey, once in a lifetime bucket list item, I think it'd be really cool. Absolutely. Get that special access, meet some of the people, interview them, talk to them, ask those kind of interesting questions. I think it'd be super, super fun. I think there's plenty of other things that we're probably missing. So if you guys are watching, drop in the comments what you'd want to like cover as press events. Maybe we're totally missing something that's out there. Like maybe someone wants to do, I don't know. Nathan's hot dog eating contest, which I think is kind of fun, but who knows? Maybe that's someone's dream. So, Luke, thanks for coming on and talking about all this live event coverage, because I think there is a lot of information that people just don't understand. And I think we did a good job breaking it down, kind of giving people the behind the scenes of the behind the scenes, right? Because we're behind the scenes of the Combine and then the Super Bowl and draft, and now we get kind of be behind the scenes of that. Before we get out of here, tell everybody one last time what you got going on. Anything special you want to shout out?
Yeah, I'm my main platform is Twitter. I have 35,000 followers over there right now, but I'm looking to actively grow my platforms outside of there. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, at Luke Sawhook on all of those. But actually, sorry, I lied. On Instagram, my personal account is at Luke Sawhook. If you want to see my football content, I just created a new account at Sawhook NFL. My last name is like the 2 metal objects. Sawhook. Follow me on any social media platform. I have an account, most likely. And I'll see you on the internet, guys. I'm just creating content. NFL, sports betting, whatever, having a good time and trying to build my follower base.
And if you like ice cream, go check out Grader's Ice Cream.
Yes,
Luke runs the socials over there.
I'm the social media manager for Grader's Ice Cream as well, based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I would bet it's at least the top 3 ice cream that you've tried in your life.
Yeah, I would say that's easily top 3 for me, yeah.
It's fantastic ice cream. It's my personal favorite ice cream.
I'm not sure if you would like the Skyline Chili one that just came out recently, but you
probably didn't get the chance to try it, did you? It's a lot better than you would expect. I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. It's flavored. Have you had Skyline?
Once. I don't really love Skyline Chili.
That's fair. If you're not from Cincinnati or like the surrounding, it's a 50-50 if you like it or not. It kind of grows on you. Like Jason Kelsey infamously said one time, he thought it was disgusting when he first tried it, but if you have it drunk at 3 a.m. enough times, it grows on you.
Yeah.
It really is pretty good once you get used to it. But the spice mix in Skyline Chili is sweeter because cinnamon is a predominant spice in Skyline. So the ice cream is Skyline spice mix with oyster crackers is like a pie crust kind of. So the ice cream tastes itself like a warm fall spices, like a cinnamony kind of like gingerbready chai flavored ice cream. So it's really not bad at all. And it's the Grader's vanilla base, so it's fantastic. But it's definitely not my favorite Grader's flavor ever. But a lot of people actually really liked it. There's a lot of demand for it to come back, and people want to try it again.
I think it's great that you guys are, I think it's great that Grader's is trying something different and, doing that. when you talk about Cincinnati-based companies, Graders and Skyline are the two big Cincinnati-based companies. So I
Big
think it's
two,
great you guys do
dynamic
that.
duo.
So yeah, check out Luke. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.
See you.